Although viewers may be upset that Becky's plotline in The Conners Season 7, Episode 4, began a lot like one of Darlene's Season 5 subplots, the outing's conclusion provided her a new, happier ending. Although every member of the Conners' large cast has experienced hardship, Becky, played by Lacey Goranson, may be the most unlucky character in the long-running sitcom's history. Mark Healy, her first Roseanne love interest and the love of her life, unfortunately passed away off-screen in a motorcycle accident. Becky had to contend with the Conners dying off, her mother Roseanne's alcoholism, an unplanned pregnancy, the father of her kid almost being deported, and nearly losing her child to Child Protective Services due to her addiction throughout the first few seasons of the spinoff. Becky has more than earned a happy ending because she has had a long and difficult path to recovery that makes even Harris's trek through the Conners appear simple. Thankfully, Danny Boy, The Interview, The New Hire, and The Hanging Chad, the fourth episode of Season 7, showed that she might actually get one. Becky's job interview in The Conners Season 7. Episode 4 was surprisingly honest. In Danny Boy, The Interview, The New Hire, and The Hanging Chad, Becky went to a job interview for a high-profile role as the mental health officer of a computer startup. After years of barely making ends meet, she was thrilled to hear during the interview process that this position would be a managerial one. But when her interviewer recognized her from Alcoholics Anonymous, Becky seemed to make a huge mistake and started talking too much about her painful history. Shortly after blacking out and nearly losing custody of her daughter Beverly Rose, Becky's mortified interviewer acknowledged that he hadn't heard her revelations during their previous appointment. Becky was devastated and accepted the fact that she would not be hired. A subplot from Season 5, Episode 14, adding insult to injury, in which Darlene refused to soften her caustic, abrasive demeanor during a series of failed job interviews, was almost exactly mirrored in this plot. Becky carelessly shared too much before she could stop herself, whereas Darlene was too proud to alter her behavior. However, the plot of Becky's The Conners Season 7 instantly reminded me of what happened in Adding Insult to Injury. Luckily, the two plots had different endings. When the interviewer, struck by Becky's bracing honesty and no-holds-barred approach, called to offer her the position after a few days of consideration, her story took an unexpectedly delightful turn. In light of Becky's struggles to turn her life around despite her best attempts was a wonderful surprise. Becky was rewarded for her honesty, unlike Darlene in Season 5 of The Conners. On the other hand, Darlene eventually got a job interview in Adding Insult to Injury, where the interviewer was impressed by her candor, yet rejected her for an irrelevant reason. In order to give Mark a free pass at SAD, Darlene accepted a lower-paying position, even though she was also given a reasonably excellent one. Darlene's Season 5 plotline was extremely different from Becky's major, The Conners Season 7 win, since Darlene was lucky to discover someone who matched her caustic attitude, whereas Becky's surprising honesty was what got her the job. Although Roseanne's treatment of Becky and Darlene frequently gave the impression that the sisters were more alike than they actually were, this vignette highlights their many significant distinctions. Darlene is typically excessively guarded, pessimistic, and cynical, while Becky is frequently overly trusting, innocent, and rashly impulsive. To show the difference, Becky was embarrassed by oversharing her personal past in the same environment as Darlene, who lost out on employment due to her caustic sarcasm during interviews. Episode 4 of The Conners' 7th season gave Becky a well-deserved victory. Darlene and Becky spent a significant portion of Roseanne's initial run, the show's 2017 revival, and the 7 seasons of The Conners at each other's throats because the sisters aren't exactly the same. They were still fighting for several days over who was wiser as recently as Season 6, Episode 5, When Sisters Collide and the Return of the Grifters. As a result, the chat between Darlene and Becky, which took place just before Becky's major win, made her ending even better. Although the new characters in The Conners Season 7 are entertaining, the sitcom's last episode really required this kind of endearing character development. Before the interview, Darlene even gave Becky praise, and Becky acknowledged that, in spite of their disagreements, she had profited from Darlene's counsel over the years. As the Roseanne spinoff approaches its conclusion, this was a pleasant surprise even though The Conners Season 7 appeared to reprise Darlene's previous plotline with Becky,